The story begins as we see a boy named Gabimaru, who is about to be executed. The executioner readies his sword, striking his neck repeatedly, but the sword ends up breaking, surprising the officials. He returns to his prison cell, where we learn that Gabimaru was trained as a shinobi since he was a child, and has developed a superhuman body because of his training. A woman named Sagiri documents the event, noting that breaking a blade with his flesh is a simple task for a shinobi like him, and Gabimaru confirms this, saying someone with such terrible swordsmanship can't hurt him. The next day, the Lord orders the executioner to burn Gabimaru at the stake. They set him on fire, covering his body in flames, but after a moment, they see his eyes staring at them through the fire, and the Lord becomes frustrated. Gabimaru returns to his cell unscathed, but he claims he's not trying to resist, and that he actually wants them to kill him. Sagiri informs him about her job to record events, so Gabimaru states that he doesn't know his parents, but he heard they were killed by the village chief when he was a baby. He claims he has no dream, because shinobis only live to kill as they're told, and we learn that he was captured when his cohorts betrayed him, because he wanted to leave the village, and he thinks the village chief had something to do with it, since the village doesn't allow anyone to leave. The following day, the Lord orders his men to have Gabimaru torn apart by bulls. They attach his legs to 2 bulls, but he easily overpowers them with his legs, and the bulls become exhausted. Sagiri goes to him, saying he appears to be resisting the execution, and asking him why he wanted to leave the village. Gabimaru claims he was the best in his village, receiving the chief's recognition, and he even married his daughter. However, he says he got fed up with his wife's naive behavior, so he told the chief that he wanted to leave the village, which is how he ended up in this situation. That evening, one of the observers warns Sagiri about Gabimaru, saying he's a hollow man who killed 20 people before he was arrested, but Sagiri wonders why a hollow man would fight so hard to the point he killed 20 men. In his prison cell, we learn that Gabimaru has actually been resisting the executions, but he decides to end it all tomorrow. During his next execution, he is boiled in hot oil, but he somehow survives it. He thinks he should have no lingering attachments, so he wonders why he can't die. The Lord is freaked out, just wanting things to be over with, but Sagiri informs him that arrangements have been made. They escort Gabimaru through a tunnel, and the Lord laughs, thinking Gabimaru is about to die. He is led to a room, where he sees Sagiri waiting for him. The Lord reveals that she is a sword tester and executioner from the Yamada clan, claiming she will be able to behead him with a single blow. Gabimaru imagines her cutting his head off, as he realizes she is the real deal. He breaks his restraints, and Sagiri tries to take him out, but he dodges the attack. Gabimaru is shocked to learn his neck has been cut, and Sagiri continues to attack him as he evades. Sagiri says she can tell that he lied about his wife, and that he actually loves her, which is why he won't let himself be killed. Gabimaru realizes this as well, thinking back to how his time with his wife made him softer. He grabs onto a sword, using it to fight Sagiri, who asks him why he has been lying to himself. He says she knows nothing about the world he lives in, claiming he is hollow. In a flashback, his wife tells him he's not hollow, as she hugs him, calling him a kind person since he is the only one who wasn't repulsed by her face. We learn that in their village, men are treated as soldiers while women are just there to bear children. The village chief wanted his daughter to remember this, so he burned her face to make her stop trying to live like an ordinary woman, but she tells him that people's hearts don't die so easily, as she kisses him. He wanted to stop being a shinobi and live a quiet life with his wife, so he tells the chief about this, which is the real reason why he got betrayed. Back in the present, Gabimaru fights on, gaining momentum as Sagiri struggles to block his attacks. He claims he can never live like a human no matter how hard he tries, but Sagiri tells him he can, showing him a pardon that would dismiss all his crimes and grant him the shogun's protection, but under the condition that he goes to the underworld. This makes Gabimaru confused, so Sagiri tells him about a beautiful land called Shinsenkyo, which has recently been discovered. It is said that the immortality-granting elixir of life can be found on that land, so the shogun sent a search party to find the elixir, but one evening, a boat returned full of flowers. But when further examined, there is a body among the flowers. The shogun learns about this, so he orders his men to gather criminals, seeing them as expendable, to send them to the island to bring back the elixir of life and pardon them if they are successful. Sagiri reveals she is there to look for potential candidates, seeing Gabimaru as a good fit. She tells Gabimaru his wife is waiting for him in the village, and the only way for him to reunite with her is to join the expedition. The Lord still wants Gabimaru dead, ordering his men to attack, but Gabimaru uses his ninjutsu, unleashing fire from his body, allowing him to defeat all the guards in the room. The Lord falls to his knees, as Gabimaru agrees to join the expedition, determined to make it back alive. In a flashback, Sagiri witnesses her father performing an execution, which was so perfectly carried out that the man didn't even realize he'd been beheaded. Sagiri made it her goal to replicate his move, and when it came time for her to perform executions, she managed to do it well, but she imagines the people she killed haunting her. A man named Aizen observes that there is doubt and fear in her swordsmanship, which makes people die painful deaths. He tells Sagiri to look at the reflection on her sword, as he states that the truth is reflected in the blade. Back in the present, Sagiri puts a blindfold on Gabimaru, and she makes him join the other criminals, as they are informed the shogun is sitting before them. They are all given orders to travel to Shinsenkyo and return with the elixir of life, saying the successful criminal will be pardoned. This makes the atmosphere change, as the criminals realize they can earn their freedom. The speaker describes the island, but the criminals interrupt him, saying it sounds like a fairy tale. The criminals are ordered to remove their masks, and they see a man with flowers coming out of his body. We learn that the man returned alive from the expedition, but he had lumps all over his body, and they started blooming the next day. The criminals begin to have doubts, not wanting to risk their lives in the expedition, but an official reminds them they have all been sentenced to death, so going to the island is considered a generous offer. A criminal named Narugai notices that they don't know anything about the island, wondering if the elixir is even there. An official tells them they are free to drop out, so one of the men tries to leave, but he is immediately executed. The official reveals that they will have the Yamada clan serve as monitors while on the island, so if they try anything funny, they will be killed on the spot. He warns the criminals not to try anything, and he adds that if their monitors die for whatever reason, they will be executed. The shogun whispers something to an official's ear, and the official tells them that their numbers need to be reduced before going to the island, because they don't have the resources to accommodate all of them. The criminals are confused, but a man named Chobei calls them idiots as he chokes another criminal to death. He points out that the officials are doing nothing, so he concludes that the officials want them to kill each other. The official confirms this, so they start killing each other, as the shogun watches on with excitement, but the official thinks this is just pointless violence. The shogun asks about the criminals with the most exceptional skills, and the official tells him about them, saying the most notable among them is Gabimaru. They observe Gabimaru, but he doesn't appear to be moving, as no one is even attacking him. Aizen notices how the violence is making Sagiri overwhelmed, telling her it will be even more brutal on the island, so he questions her capabilities, thinking she isn't suited for the job. Aizen tells her she should just live quietly in her mansion, and Sagiri tells him that she would have if she could. In a flashback, we see Sagiri running away from some bullies, as they make fun of her family for making a living through people's deaths. One day, she picks up a sword, and she sees the reflection on the sword, allowing her to see the spirits haunting it. Back in the present, some of the criminals think about escaping, so they charge at Sagiri, seeing her as an easy target. Aizen wonders if she can handle them, but Sagiri has accepted her fate as an executioner, and she easily takes them all out, but she starts to feel haunted by her victims again. But the spirits disappear, as Gabimaru says that killing people is never okay. Gabimaru asks if there is another way to choose who's going on the expedition, because not everyone wants to kill people. An official threatens him, telling him to watch his tongue, as he orders a criminal to attack him. The man lifts a stone and throws it at him, but Gabimaru easily dodges it. Gabimaru wants to talk it out, but the criminal refuses, leaving him with no choice but to kill the man, because he needs to survive. He approaches the man, saying he's about to be burdened, as he starts taking out the other criminals with such brutality that even the shogun is unsettled. Sagiri looks at his reflection through her sword, and she sees countless souls around him, but they don't seem to disturb him. This makes Sagiri realize that what she needs is not to get rid of her fear and doubt, but the strength to take on the burdens of the lives she took. The officials stop them, telling them they will be joining the expedition, and we learn that the 10 criminals who will be joining the expedition are the same criminals who have exceptional skills. They all board a ship, and we see the island as they slowly arrive. Gabimaru remembers when the village chief was pierced by multiple weapons, but he didn't fall, proving his immortality, and it was apparently due to a medicine he acquired from a land across the sea. They arrive at Shinsenkyo, where Gabimaru tells Sagiri that the elixir of life is real, but he isn't sure if they will find it on this island. They explore the island, as Sagiri comments on how beautiful the place is, but Gabimaru thinks it's creepy, saying they don't know what's out there. He breaks his restraints, and Sagiri tells him that he's not allowed to do that, but Gabimaru tells her to let it slide, explaining how they only have a strange drawing as a clue, and their food is only good for 3 days. However, Sagiri threatens to kill him, telling him to bind his hands, as she explains she is not his friend, and her role is as executioner, so he reluctantly complies. As he lets Sagiri tie his hands, he suddenly gets hit by a giant steel ball, blowing him away. The ball returns to a criminal named Kayan, who thinks he just got rid of his target, but Gabimaru gets back up, cracking his neck as he admits that it got dislocated. Sagiri explains Kayan is a warrior monk who steals the weapons of the warriors he has killed, but Gabimaru points out that Kayan's hands aren't restrained, so Sagiri asks Kayan's executioner, Kisho, about this. Kisho says they can just tie their hands on the way back, telling Sagiri she's the lowest ranked executioner because she's too rigid. Kayan displays his other weapons, wanting to test them out on Gabimaru. Gabimaru doesn't want to waste time fighting, saying that the others will get ahead of them, but Kayan says that since they have no leads, he is better off taking out the other criminals and then taking his time to look for the elixir, so Gabimaru realizes he has no choice but to fight. Kayan charges at him, but Sagiri asks him to bind his hands. Kayan smashes his head, but the mace shatters, so he brings out other weapons to attack Gabimaru, who continues to tie his hands while he endures the blows, breaking Kayan's weapons. Kayan thrusts his spear at Gabimaru, who has just finished tying his hands. Gabimaru breaks the spear, launching Kayan into the air, and as his weapons fall toward Gabimaru, Gabimaru kicks one of the spears at Kayan, stabbing him in the chest. Sagiri thinks Gabimaru won with a single attack, but Kayan gets back up, saying they're just getting started, but he easily gets defeated by Gabimaru, who uses his own weapons against him. Gabimaru wants to continue their quest, as Kisho beheads Kayan, and he heads back to the ship. Gabimaru wonders if he wants to fight, but Kisho says he is just doing his job and doesn't take any sides, even considering himself lucky for getting out so quickly, reminding Sagiri she will be spending time with a dangerous criminal. Kisho tells them about how the other criminals are breaking the rules, and he predicts they will continue to kill each other until there is only one left standing. We see Aizen tying their boat to a tree, when his criminal Rokuroda gets hungry and suddenly attacks him. He tries to defend himself, but his sword is shattered, and he ends up being eaten by Rokuroda. Some of the other criminals meet their end, as Kisho explains that more will be added since they are expendable, revealing that they are recruiting people from Gabimaru's village, as well as the Amada clan. As he leaves, Kisho warns Sagiri not to let her guard down, and she starts to wonder about Gabimaru's true character. At that moment, Gabimaru suddenly attacks her, but she manages to push him back. Gabimaru recalls when the chief killed his parents, it was because they wanted to leave the village. The chief taught Gabimaru that emotions make a person weak, and he won't be able to protect anything unless he is strong. He exchanges blows with Sagiri as he thinks about this, and Sagiri informs him that killing her is against the rules, but Gabimaru says he needs to find the elixir before the other shinobis from his village arrive, seeing her as a hindrance. He continues to attack Sagiri, who thinks he should be executed immediately, but she finds herself hesitating, and we learn that Gabimaru has the same problem, not knowing why he can't bring himself to kill her. Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him to follow his emotions, and we learn that he has been experiencing emotions since he met his wife, which got in the way during his missions. Gabimaru sees an opening, but he stops as he is about to deal the finishing blow, so he gets pushed back. He sees this as a weakness, thinking he won't be able to survive, so he continues his assault, as he thinks about the chief's advice, making him hollow again. He breaks Sagiri's sword, and he is about to cut her down, but she uses her sheath to defend herself. Gabimaru eventually comes out on top, ready to deal the finishing blow, but he struggles to finish her off, admitting he still has emotions left, and he starts crying, thinking he has become weak. Sagiri tells him it's not weakness, but the seed of strength, as she believes that not fleeing from his emotions is strength. She decides to overlook his behavior, wanting to see him face his emotions and reclaim his life, as she tells him he is no longer his old self. Meanwhile, the criminal Tamiya realizes his hand has been stung by a butterfly, and he recalls what happened to the man who returned from the expedition, so he quickly slices his hand off and kills the insect. His executioner Fuchi is confused by this, but Tamiya shows him the human-faced butterfly, saying that it's not from their world. At that moment, his severed hand transforms into flowers, and more creatures appear around them, including a giant abomination. Meanwhile, Gabimaru and Sagiri are also surrounded, with a fish monster standing before them, so he tells her to stand back, preparing to take it on. In a flashback, we learn that Tamiya was an extremely skilled swordsman, and he agreed to become the officer of a certain lord. One day, he has a drink with his lord, but he hears a comment which makes him upset, so he ended up destroying the mansion's gate and killing his lord, which made an entire clan hunt him down, resulting in his arrest. We see Tamiya with Fuchi as they arrive on the island, and Tamiya notices how his executioner has tools for dissections. Fuchi explains that the Amada clan also dissects bodies to help produce effective medicines. The fish creature uses its arms to attack Gabimaru, but he easily evades and kicks the monster's head. However, the creature grabs onto his foot and slams him against the ground. Gabimaru quickly recovers, as he remembers the shinobi rule, which states that he must not fight an unknown enemy. He thinks about retreating, but the creature suddenly restrains him, smashing his body against the trees before throwing him away. Sagiri is surprised he is actually injured, and they think they should run away, but they soon realize there are giants approaching them from all directions. Wanting to survive, Gabimaru goes berserk, using his ninjutsu to destroy a giant's head. He goes on to butcher the other giants, while Sagiri watches in awe, thinking about how dangerous the job is. A giant suddenly attacks her from behind, which she evades, but centipede monsters grab onto her, restricting her movement as the giant prepares to strike. Gabimaru cuts the giant's arm, allowing him to save Sagiri, but this snaps him out of his berserk state. The fish monster is about to attack them, but the executioner named Genji arrives and takes out the creature. A ninja named Yuzuri joins them, calling Gabimaru impressive for killing all the monsters by himself. Gabimaru questions her motives as she approaches him, trying to seduce him into working with her, but he ends up restraining her, saying her seduction won't work on him. Yuzuri claims she just wanted to try it out, but she is serious about working together. Sagiri wonders why she has two executioners with her, so Genji explains how he was assigned to another criminal, who was killed by her. So because of this, he concluded that one executioner may not be able to control her, so he decided to join them. However, Gabimaru finds the explanation weird, so they conclude that he must have been seduced. The other executioner introduces himself as Senta, and Yuzuri tells them about the creatures in the area, saying finding the elixir is important, but they can't charge in without a plan. Sagiri tells him there is no problem with working together, and Yuzuri hugs onto him, but Gabimaru restrains her, telling her he can't trust her, but she uses her legs to bring him closer, saying he doesn't need to trust her, because they will eventually betray each other because only one of them will be pardoned, so she suggests just using each other for the time being. Gabimaru backs off, as he wonders how she can help him, and Yuzuri reveals she has plenty of information, telling them that the real danger on the island is the human-faced butterfly, which has hallucinogens and poison. She reveals how she got the information, saying she tested the bugs out on another criminal, who she ended up killing. Senta tells them about the items the monsters are wearing, mentioning that they have Buddhist designs, which he finds strange. Yuzuri tells them there is still much they don't know, so they should work together to learn more. Gabimaru says he wants information, but he only agrees to fight together, not wanting to cooperate with her fully. Sagiri watches them as they interact, thinking about what she has done since arriving on the island, but she suddenly collapses. In a flashback, we see a man named Toma, who is about to become an executioner, and Aizen tells him he should take the final step by killing a criminal, thinking about which execution would be suitable. Toma says he has a request, and he goes to his brother Chobei, telling him he knows how to make the magistrate's men stop pursuing them. Back in the present, the brothers are surprised to see three giant creatures standing before them. Chobei immediately attacks them, as Toma reveals that his brother's strength is to quickly understand situations. We learn that the brothers lived in poverty after their parents died, and they were taken by bandits. While with the bandits, Chobei somehow controlled the situation, and he eventually became the bandit king. He cuts down a giant, but his knife breaks, so he runs away with Toma, but a giant grabs onto Toma's hair. As Chobei returns with an axe, Chobei gets hit in the face by a staff, and the monster tells them that murder is a sin. The other creatures start talking to them, which makes Toma believe they're in hell, but Chobei starts cutting through the creatures, and he manages to defeat all of them. Chobei thinks that the elixir must be real since there are monsters protecting it, so he decides to take out everyone on the island and take the elixir for themselves. Sagiri regains consciousness, and Genji tells them they're safe in a cavern. He informs Sagiri she was poisoned by the butterfly's scales, but she immediately gets back up, wanting to monitor Gabimaru. She leaves the cavern, and she sees Gabimaru preparing dinner, while Senna fixes their torn clothes. While having dinner, Gabimaru reveals he scouted the island, and he learned something about the flora, saying he found several flowers resembling the man they were shown, which makes them conclude that the people who went missing have now turned into plants on the island. Gabimaru wasn't able to find anything that looks like the clue they were given, but Senna suggests they shouldn't rely too much on the illustration, since the officials don't know much about the island. Sagiri notices how the creatures on the island have an animal parts stacked on top of humanoid forms, and Senna adds that they were items that seemed religious. He says they're like malformed gods, which seems to be the theme for the island and the creatures. Later that day, Genji tells Sagiri to return to the mainland, because he believes she isn't strong enough to survive. However, Senna thinks the return trip wouldn't be so easy, since most people don't return from the island. We meet the executioner Tenza, as he tries to escape the island with Nurugai. They eventually stumble upon a ship, but as they get closer, they realize that the ship has been destroyed, along with the other ships around it. Tenza speculates the ships all attempted to leave the island, and they see creatures moving around them, so Tenza pulls out his sword, but a sea monster attacks them, forcing them to jump out of their boat. They land on a shipwreck, and more tentacles appear around them. Tenza slices through them as they search for a usable ship, and Nurugai wonders if she is being punished. Nurugai remembers when she led a group of samurai to her village, and they ended up wiping her whole village out, but the men spared her, planning to use her to find the other villages. While she was locked up, Tenza found her, knowing she is innocent, and showed her the pardon offer. As they run, they come across Kisho, who is now transforming into flowers. Tenza tries to talk to him, but a tentacle cuts him in half. Kisho's body reminds Nurugai about her dead grandfather, and this makes her fall to her knees, telling Tenza to escape without her, as she blames herself for the deaths of everyone in her village. Tenza defends her from the tentacles, asking her if she wants to die, and Nurugai realizes she wants to survive, so Tenza gives her a sword. They fight through the tentacles together, allowing them to reach a boat, which they use to return to the island. They realize that the currents prevent them from escaping, and sea monsters seem to surround the island, so they decide they will need to gather allies for the return trip. Meanwhile, Genji tells Sagiri to sail home, but Senna thinks she could help if Gabimaru needs to be stopped, saying he seems to have changed after spending time with her. That evening, she goes to Gabimaru, who asks if she's feeling better, because he knows the wound he gave her made the insect's poison act quickly. He reveals how Sagiri calmed him down, and Gabimaru claims she is stronger than him, but he doesn't know how to explain it to her, but he tells her that experience can help her realize her strength. The next day, Sagiri tells Genji she won't be leaving, so he pulls out his sword, trying to scare her, but she instantly disarms him. Genji retrieves his sword as he reprimands her, but Rokuroda suddenly appears behind him, and he gets blown away. As a child, Rokuroda had an insatiable appetite, and he loved playing with things using his hands. However, he eventually went on a frenzy, and ate everyone from his village. Rokuroda targets Sagiri, but Gabimaru kicks him away. Rokuroda gets back up, and Gabimaru sees him as a dangerous man, wondering how his kick didn't hurt him. He remembers how he was trained to analyze the enemy's abilities, so he decides to observe his opponent before making a move. Rokuroda uproots a tree and throws it at him as Gabimaru dodges it. He thinks Rokuroda is stronger than him, so he asks for Yuzuri's help, but she reminds him she's only responsible for gathering information as she starts cheering for him. Rokuroda wildly swings at him as he evades the attacks, thinking he could die in a single hit. Gabimaru tries launching rocks at his enemy, but it seems to have no effect at all. Seeing this, he takes out his sash, using ninjutsu to make it as hard as steel, but even this is proven to be ineffective. He uses his other techniques, but nothing works, and he starts to wonder how he can take out his opponent. Sagiri tries to treat Genji's wounds, but he tells her to stop, knowing he can't be saved. He tells her to run, but she refuses to leave him, telling him not to give up. This makes Genji realize she has chosen her way of life, so he gives her his sword, explaining how a warrior's sword is his soul. He wants her to kill Rokuroda, as he starts seeing her as one of them. Gabimaru is now running out of options, thinking the only way to beat him is to use his fire technique, but he knows close combat is too dangerous. But Rokuroda's finger is suddenly cut off, as Sagiri joins the fight. Gabimaru finds her timing impeccable, and he knows they need to decapitate him, but he's too tall, so he tells Sagiri to go for the leg. As Gabimaru deflects Rokuroda's attack, Sagiri strikes his leg, but it does nothing to him, and she falls back as he swings at her. Sagiri realizes she's screwed up, because she was too aggressive, so she lets go of her emotions. Rokuroda strikes, and Gabimaru manages to evade his attack, but he realizes his leg has been sprained. Sagiri strikes Rokuroda's arm, but it does nothing, and she points out that she needs to strike the gaps between his bones to land a decisive blow, so she needs him to be hunched over for her to behead him. Rokuroda suddenly cries, letting out a powerful scream which overwhelms their senses. He strikes Gabimaru before he can even react, slamming him against the ground. Gabimaru survives this attack, but he falls to his knees, coughing up blood. Rokuroda is about to deal the finishing blow, but Sagiri gets in the way. At that moment, she achieves a serene state of mind, easily deflecting the attack, which surprises everyone. As she fights, Senna reveals that Sagiri is the lowest ranked executioner, because as a woman, she is not suitable to lead their clan. However, in terms of pure skill, the executioners know she is better than most of them. Rokuroda loses his footing, and Sagiri is about to finish him off, but he jumps away. Gabimaru comes up with an idea, as he uses fire ninjutsu to throw flaming projectiles, burning everything around them. Yuzuri runs away, knowing Gabimaru is planning to suffocate Rokuroda with the smoke. The plan works, as Rokuroda gets down on his knees, struggling to breathe, and Sagiri prepares to deal the finishing blow. He tries to strike back, but Gabimaru pushes his hand against the ground, and Sagiri manages to execute him. However, the look in his eyes makes Sagiri realize that he was living a misunderstood life, not knowing how strong he was, so he accidentally killed people when he just wanted to play with them. Gabimaru gets worried the monsters might be drawn to the fire, so they leave the area, leaving behind Genji's remains. They hide as giants make their way to the area, and Gabimaru suggests going in the direction where the monsters came from, thinking it could lead them to the elixir. They catch up to Yuzuri and Senta, and they are all surprised to see a village on the island. Meanwhile, the brothers go deeper into the forest, where they see two beings making out. Chobei wonders if they are monsters, and the yellow one named Jufa becomes angry at them for spoiling the mood. Gabimaru wonders if the residents of the island are friends or foes. He sees a girl spying on them, so he runs after her. He catches up to her, removing her hood, and he is surprised to see she is a child. A tree monster suddenly takes a swing at him, and the girl continues to run away. Gabimaru chases after her, thinking she knows something about the island. He dodges the tree's attack and kicks it away, while Sagiri rushes after him, leading their companions to deal with the creature. Yuzuri removes Senna's glasses, saying she doesn't want him to see her techniques, as she drinks from a cup, causing strange liquid to come out of her body. Gabimaru catches up to the girl, grabbing onto her hand, but the girl throws him to the ground, which surprises him, because a child shouldn't be able to perform such a move on him. Sagiri runs after the girl, telling her they just want to talk, and this causes her to stop, letting Sagiri catch up to her. The girl suddenly tries to punch her, but Gabimaru blocks the attack. He notes that the girl's strength is on another level, as the blow causes him to take a few steps back. Gabimaru tells her he is in a desperate situation, as he grabs onto some vines, wrapping them around the girl and suspending her in midair. The girl starts crying, so they release her, and Sagiri calms her down. Yuzuri joins them, telling them she worked hard to defeat the creature. They gather around to discuss what to do next, when the tree creature tells them to return the girl, as it offers to take them to the village and tell them about the elixir. Yuzuri doesn't trust the creature, but it mentions they have a bath in their village, which instantly makes her change her mind. The creature takes them to the village, which looks like a ghost town, and it tells them it wasn't like this 1,000 years ago. It takes them to its house, where Yuzuri takes a bath with Sagiri, while the monster gives the men some food. Gabimaru is suspicious, asking the monster about the island and the elixir. They gather around the food, as the creature reveals that the island is called Kotaku, and it's an island where gods reside. The monster confirms that the elixir exists, telling them about the legend where it is known as Tan. Gabimaru asks about its location, so the monster draws 3 circles on the floor, saying they are now in the 2nd circle, and the elixir is somewhere at the center of the island, which is known as Horahai. Gabimaru asks for proof that the elixir exists, and the creature tells them they won't doubt his story once they meet the Tensen, which are beautiful and immortal creatures. We see Chobei after he has cut Jufa in half, but the body regenerates, and he is as good as new. The tree claims that the Tensen are completely on another level, explaining it has no reason to lie, because they are all going to end up killed by the Tensen. The brothers are defeated by Jufa, and they are thrown into a pit, which is filled with humans that have transformed into flowers. Toma helps his brother as he regains consciousness, and the tree reveals how the lives of those transformed into flowers become the source of Tan, and the people feel eternal bliss. It introduces itself as Hako, and the girl is Mei, and reveals they have been living on the island for centuries. After that, Gabimaru and Sagiri go to the bathroom, where they run into Mei. She cries at first, but Gabimaru says everyone just shares the bath in his village. Sagiri notices a huge scar on Mei's body, and Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him about the importance of getting proper rest, as she helped him take a bath. He tells Mei not to be ashamed of her scars, because the most beautiful woman he knows has a large scar, saying appearances don't matter, and Sagiri is surprised hearing this. As they walk away, Gabimaru remembers his priorities, thinking he doesn't have time to sit around chatting. In a flashback, we see that Tenza was raised in the slums, and his parents never fed him well, so he had no choice but to steal from other people to survive. One day, he bumps into a group of swordsmen who look down at him, so he ends up beating them up, but they are saved when an executioner named Shion interferes. Back in the present, Tenza walks around the shore with Narugai when a Tensen named Zujin suddenly approaches them. It transforms into a man and asks them about all the dead monsters, wondering if they are the ones responsible. They try to run away, but Zujin immediately catches up to them, blasting Tenza away with a pulse of energy. Narugai quickly backs away, making her way to the downed Tenza. As Zujin walks to her, Tenza suddenly slashes his eyes, but it instantly regenerates. Tenza tells Narugai they're going to escape as he unleashes a combo, slicing Zujin into pieces, before giving the signal to run. As they run, Zujin blocks their path as he regenerates, but Shion suddenly throws his sword at Zujin, giving the duo time to escape. We learn that although Shion is blind, he can see through his other senses. They are able to get away, and we learn that Shion is Tenza's master. Shion says he was about to go home, but he couldn't find a current that leads out of the island. He says he eventually found a current that leads out, but he sensed a presence like nothing he had ever experienced before. Knowing there is only so much he can do alone, he decided to look for allies on the island, but he asks Tenza why he is helping Narugai, as he reveals how he executed the criminal that tried to seduce him. Tenza says Narugai is innocent, reminding Shion how he took him in, as he vouches for the girl. Shion decides to listen to him, and he decides to take them to the current that he found, but Zujin suddenly appears behind the duo. Shion dashes to save them, but his neck starts bleeding. Tenza tries to attack Zujin, unleashing a powerful flurry of slashes, but Zujin easily dodges it, and counters with a flick of his finger, creating 4 holes in Tenza's body. We see Tenza and Shion in another flashback, as Shion reveals how he likes to help people during his spare time, seeing potential in Tenza. He teaches Tenza how to wield a sword, telling him his sword skills will help him protect someone he cares about. Tenza thinks he has no potential, and he decides to quit, but Shion tells him he can only quit once he lands a hit on him. As he leaves the dojo, Tenza encounters Aizen, who wants to have a walk with him. Aizen takes him to the cemetery, where he shows Tenza the grave of Shion's former junior named Teshin. He lacked motivation like Tenza, and decided to leave the dojo, but he lived a life of crime because he struggled to feed himself, and in the end, Shion had to execute him, but this made him even more passionate about helping others and becoming a mentor. Aizen tells Tenza to land the blow on Shion, so he asks Shion to spar with him, and even though he keeps on losing, he refuses to give up. He eventually hits Shion, but he has already changed his mind, wanting to stay at the dojo with his master. Tenza knows he is about to die, but he has finally found something he wants to protect, so he gets back up and starts pounding Zujin with his fists. He tries to do everything he can to help his companions escape, but Zujin unleashes another energy blast, blowing a hole in his stomach. He tries to tell his companions to escape, but he can't because his throat has been damaged. Shion seems to understand what he's saying, and he runs away with Narugai. Tenza continues to attack Zujin, and he fights to his last breath, giving the others time to escape. They mourn the death of Tenza, and Shion swears he will get revenge for him. Back at the village, Sena can't seem to make sense of the information they've gathered so far, and Sagiri tells him to take a break, but he refuses. That evening, Gabimaru remembers how it would be dangerous to act without a plan, because there are still too many mysteries they need to solve. But while Sena sleeps during his watch duty, Gabimaru leaves, trying to reach Horai. He eventually stops as he hears weird voices, and he reaches an area full of strange trees, which appear to be praying. He goes in the direction they are facing, and he finds a giant door, which he thinks could lead to the elixir. But before he can open it, Zujin appears behind him, telling him to leave. He asks Zujin if he can turn humans into elixirs, and Zujin suddenly dashes to attack him, but Gabimaru swiftly responds, breaking his arm. He follows up with a powerful kick, breaking Zujin's neck, but it quickly snaps back into place. Gabimaru dodges Zujin's attacks, and counters with a spinning kick, using his fire technique to light his head on fire. The fire consumes Zujin's body, and Gabimaru thinks he has secured victory, but Zujin suddenly punches him, sending him crashing against the wall. Gabimaru survives the attack, and they continue their battle, as he assesses the situation, wondering how he can defeat the Tensen. He manages to land a kick, but it gives him a strange feeling, as Zujin coughs up blood, and he wonders why the attack was successful. Zujin changes to his female form, and he starts attacking with a barrage of energy blasts. Gabimaru is brought to his knees, but he is determined to succeed in his mission no matter what, so he tanks the blows as he dashes forward, allowing him to close the distance. They exchange blows, with neither of them backing down, as Gabimaru plans to destroy Zujin faster than he can heal, and he actually manages to overpower the Tensen, tearing his body apart. Zujin smiles as his body suddenly transforms into a giant flower monster, which uses a lightning spell, destroying the area around it. Gabimaru survives, and he tries to fight back, but he is no match for Zujin's lightning, and his body reaches its limit. The monster continues its assault, and he wakes up in a room with his wife, thinking he was just having a nightmare, but he realizes he is hallucinating since he is about to die. The monster grabs onto him as it proceeds to squeeze him to death, but he remembers how he was trained to inflict as much damage as possible before dying, so he unleashes fire from his body, burning the monster's arm, before he falls to the ground. Zujin prepares to deal the finishing blow, but Mei appears and protects him with a shield, helping him escape. The next morning, the group searches for Gabimaru and Mei. Hako reveals that there are 7 Tensens, and we see them gathered in one location as they discuss how fierce the humans are. Jufa blames Zujin for failing to take down the humans, blasting his head off as he comments on Zujin's ugly appearance, seeing how he's been using too much Tao, and mocks him for using his transformation against a human. The ruler of Kotaku, Rien, stops Jufa, telling him they are a family, and he's the only one who can punish Zujin. Jufa reports how he threw the 2 brothers into the pit, thinking they should have already turned into flowers, but Rien thinks that the humans are different from the ones they have dealt with before, and we see that the brothers were able to escape from the pit. Zujin claims he was able to kill Gabimaru, and they all share a drink, which helps Zujin recover his human form. According to legend, there was a hermit who mastered their art and became a god split into 7 parts, which are now known as the Tensens. Hako tells this story to everyone, saying he learned it back when he was a child, as he claims he once looked human. He reveals how everyone on the island were humans who lived long lives, but they realized that despite their extended lifespan, they started transforming into trees, and this caused them to slowly lose awareness. But before they completely lost it, they gathered at a particular location to ensure that their souls would reach Horai after death, which explains why there were trees praying close to Horai. He further explains that Horai is the final resting place of souls, but the Tensens get to choose which souls will enter. Meanwhile, Gabimaru regains consciousness, and he recalls his encounter with Zujin, thinking there must be a way to defeat the Tensen. He realizes they are not gods, so they can be killed. but he needs to have a plan, knowing he can't do it alone. Fuchi and Tamiya suddenly arrive, as Tamiya comments on his condition, wondering if it's time for him to die. They size each other up, thinking about fighting, but Fuchi tells Tamiya they should focus on gathering information as he pulls out his sword, wanting to get some answers from Gabimaru without killing him. But Gabimaru bows before them as he proposes working together, and Tamiya tests him by threatening to strike him down, but Gabimaru doesn't move, so they know he's not trying to fool them. Fuchi asks him why he wants to do this, so Gabimaru tells them about the Tensins, and they are surprised to learn that such powerful creatures exist. Fuchi doesn't trust him, but Tamiya joins him, wanting to fight the Tensins, as he reveals how he isn't even interested in the pardon. We learn that Tamiya wants his name to go down in history by defeating the Tensins, while Fuchi wants to dissect their remains. They decide to work together, and Gabimaru is about to give them more information when Mei wakes up. Gabimaru is surprised to see that Mei has grown up in such a short period. She calls out Gabimaru's name, and he realizes she can now talk. He thanks her for saving his life, asking her if she's like the Tensin. Elsewhere, Senda concludes that the religious system on the island is man-made. He thinks the creator of the island just wanted humans that transformed into flowers to return, and he sees it as a clue that could help them find the elixir and escape. Mei tells them about the Tao, which is the power that the Tensin use, but she can only offer a vague explanation because she still isn't used to speaking. On the other hand, Hako explains that everything in the world is created by the flow of Tao, and it has something to do with the origin of the universe. Despite his explanation, the group still finds it difficult to understand. Nurugai tries to ambush Shion, but he disarms her and makes her sheath her sword, saying he'll never teach her how to use it. She implores him to teach her because she doesn't want to watch her loved ones die. Hearing this, Shion tells her how everything in the world produces unique waves, which is what he uses to see the world around him. He goes on to explain how using the waves also improves one's physical capabilities, which is quite similar to how Hako describes the benefits of mastering Tao. Shion states it's difficult to sense the waves, since one must be in a balanced state of mind. He tells Nurugai she isn't wielding the blade properly, as he pulls out his sword, demonstrating how to wield it. At that moment, monsters appear around them, and Shion can sense their presence, so he takes them out one by one, as he gives Nurugai tips for fighting. A group of monsters make their way to Gabimaru and his allies, so Tamiya springs into action, killing all the monsters at once, and he lifts Mei up, telling her to teach him the power of Tao, as more monsters approach them. Gabimaru observes the monsters, and he sees a silhouette behind them. Meanwhile, two of the Tensins discuss how the humans merge into flowers after being thrown into the pit, allowing them to harvest tan efficiently. They think escaping the pit is unlikely, because the humans that are transformed into flowers will stop them as they try to escape. But we see Chobei climbing up the pit, as the transformed humans try to stop him, but he powers through, allowing them to reach the surface. Chobei is determined to kill the Tensins, saying their weakness is their lower body, as he points out that the Tensins started regenerating from its lower body, so he suggests aiming for that area, and Toma is impressed by his brother's ability to read the situation. A monster suddenly appears, and it seems willing to talk, saying it received orders from the Tensin to investigate. He introduces himself as a Doshi, saying his colleagues are scouting the other humans on the island. He explains how Doshis are the right hand of the Tensin because they are capable of reason. The Doshi wants the brothers to return to the pit, so Chobei tries to kick it, but it dodges and counters with a punch. But Chobei stands his ground, grabbing onto the Doshi's arm and using his brute force to cut it off. The arm regrows, and the Doshi summons monsters to deal with them. Toma swiftly deals with the monsters, as Chobei continues his fight with the Doshi. It senses his Tao as he attacks, and he comments how attacks from one who cannot use Tao are trivial, because he can instantly regenerate from it. It sees a disturbance in Chobei's Tao, seeing it as a blind spot, and Chobei gets slashed, falling to the ground. The Doshi comments on how fragile humans are, and he plans to return him to the pit, but Chobei suddenly drives his fist through the monster's face, and he gets back up. The Doshi wonders how Chobei was able to regenerate, thinking he merged with the plants during his time in the pit. Chobei mentions how he sensed something from the Doshi, and he speculates that it's the key to defeating the Tensin. The Doshi attacks with the intent to kill, but Chobei is able to block the attack. The impact breaks his arms, but it quickly snaps back into place. They continue to exchange blows, and Shobei manages to push the monster back as it notes that his Tao is continuously growing. Shobei doesn't know what's happening to him, and the monster suggests he is transforming into something that isn't human, but he isn't bothered, saying nothing in the world remains the same. We learn that when the brothers were taken by the bandits, they weren't convinced that the boys could join them because of their privileged upbringing, but Shobei cut his eye to persuade them, and this is how he was accepted into their group. Shobei charges at the doshi as he endures the energy blasts, and he manages to land a hit on its navel, which makes it cough up blood, confirming that the navel is its weak point. The doshi jumps back, launching an energy blast, but Shobei manages to dodge it. He mentions how he can now see the energy around its body, and this scares the doshi, calling on the monsters to help him, but Toma has already defeated them. The monster gathers Tao energy using his hand, but Shobei stomps on it, and he replicates the technique, using it to punch a hole into the doshi's stomach. He senses the doshi's Tao, and he realizes it's on the brink of death, so he starts asking questions about the Tensen. At that moment, Toma becomes worried, as he notices marks on Shobei's body, which look like vines, and they appear to be growing. We learn that the scar on Mei's body is similar. Tamiya tries to learn Tao while fighting, asking for Mei's advice, but she tells him he's doing it wrong. They observe Gabimaru as he fights, but Mei notes that he also doesn't get it. Fuchi sees Mei as a mystery, wondering who she is, as Gabimaru recalls how the girl used her power to save him, so he concludes she isn't a normal human. The doshi leading the pack recognizes Mei, so he attacks Tamiya, who manages to block, but he isn't able to stop the monster from taking Mei. The doshi says he has been looking for her, revealing how she was banished from the palace, and she disappeared from Horai. They were forbidden from searching for her, but the monster is happy to stumble upon her. Gabimaru asks what's going on, and the doshi says she doesn't belong with the humans, as he reveals she feeds off of humans just like the Tensen. The monster implores Mei to return to Horai, but Mei looks at Gabimaru with a sad look on her face, so he goes to her, saying he doesn't want her to cry. The doshi's colleague appears, and together, they summon centipedes and butterflies to their side. Tamiya tries to attack, but he is immediately stopped by a Tao attack, and the doshi proceeds to assault them, but they all get pushed back. Gabimaru wonders why they want Mei, so the doshi explains how she helps them with their Tao training. They reveal there are 5 steps to mastering Tao, and the most important one requires a partner, since it requires the participants to make love. The doshi explains how all things possess yin and yang energies, and both energies circulate when a male and female join together. The doshi want her because she possesses the highest quality of yin energy, which can be made to circulate with their yang energy. They also reveal that Mei has the same origins as the Tensen, but she is inferior because, unlike them, she only possesses yin energy, which is the same reason why she was banished from the palace, leaving her as a training partner for the doshis. They ask Mei to return, but Gabimaru becomes enraged hearing this, refusing to let them have her. The doshis transform themselves, similar to how Zujin transformed himself into a flower monster. Tamiya struggles against the butterfly monster, while Gabimaru uses his fire technique to destroy his opponent's arm. The monster fires a barrage of Tao attacks, which Gabimaru dodges even though he can't see. The 2 warriors fall back as the butterflies pursue them, but Gabimaru uses a fire-breathing technique to create a firewall. Gabimaru notes how he can now sense Tao vaguely, but he wants to detect it more precisely. At that moment, Fuchi tells them he has deciphered Mei's words, saying their minds must be both strong and weak to see Tao. Mei touches Gabimaru's hands, helping him sense his own Tao, as Fuchi goes on to explain that Tao requires a specific state of mind, and he tells Gabimaru to weaken his mind. This confuses him at first, but he remembers the moment he shared with Sagiri, and he begins to grasp the concept. He prepares to face the monsters, as Mei comments that Gabimaru's Tao is enormous. The doshi attacks him with Tao blasts, but he clearly sees it approaching, dodging all the attacks, and he dashes toward the monster. As Gabimaru closes the distance, the doshi tries to punch him, but he evades, as he notes that he can now predict attacks from sensing the movement of one's Tao. The monster follows up, but Gabimaru touches its fist, causing its arm to break, and he lands a kick on both of the monsters. Tamiya doesn't want to be upstaged, so he charges at the centipede monster, slashing it in half while Gabimaru burns the butterfly doshi. Meanwhile, the others are able to open the giant door, allowing them to enter Horai, but a Tensen named Mudan suddenly decapitates Hako. The Tenshin tells them they are the first humans to reach that place, and Yuzuri becomes scared, so she starts running away, but Mudon instantly grabs onto her, saying he just wants to talk. Hako tells them Mudon is a Tenshin, and he reveals he has accelerated Hako's transformation so he will soon lose his awareness. Hako wants his soul to be invited into Horai, but Mudon tells him their religion was a lie invented to maintain order on the island. He adds that the island is a place for conducting human experiments, as he shows them the Kyoshi, which are creatures he made using humans. Mudon says there is no elixir on the island, and he reveals that if a human consumes Tan, they will turn into a tree, just like Hako and the other villagers. He tells them their journey has come to an end, telling them to go with him, but Yuzuri uses her substitution jutsu, attacking him from behind and cutting off his head. They proceed to run away, thinking the threat has been dealt with, but he quickly regenerates, ordering the Kyoshi to attack Yuzuri, who manages to evade. We learn that Yuzuri knows something similar to Tao, which is known as Chi, but she still hasn't mastered it. Mudon invites her to be his Tao training partner, as he uses a Tao attack to blast Sagiri away. As he explains his technique to Yuzuri, Senna cuts him up, and Yuzuri drinks a certain liquid, causing fluids to come out of her body. She reveals that her ninjutsu allows her to secrete the liquids that she swallows, which happens to be snake poison. She uses her ability to bind Mudon, using the poison to burn his skin, before slicing him into pieces. But Mudon regenerates, and he comments on her abilities, seeing it as an application of Tao, but he says she still has room for improvement. Senta and Yuzuri strike at him, but he casually dodges their attacks, before grabbing onto Yuzuri's leg and pushing Senta back. Hako tells Sagiri about the Tenshin's weakness, as Mudon lectures Yuzuri about Tao. But Sagiri suddenly interrupts them, forcing him to jump away. Mudon notes that Sagiri has an average amount of Tao, thinking she can't do anything, but she launches her sword at his navel and she cuts him open. We learn that the source of Tao is located at the navel, so it serves as the Tenshin's weakness. However, Mudon is unaffected, saying Sagiri hasn't mastered Tao, but Sagiri remains calm, and she suddenly exudes Tao energy as she launches a slash which scratches Mudon's face. The wound doesn't regenerate, and we learn that Sagiri has been able to sense Tao all along. Mudon prepares to strike Sagiri, but Yuzuri restrains him, and Sagiri prepares to cut him down. He blows Sagiri away, ordering the Kyoshi to deal with Yuzuri, but Senna makes quick work of them. Sagiri continues to pursue Mudon, but he keeps dodging, so her allies cut off his limbs, giving her an opening. However, Mudon takes to the skies, and he bombs them with Tao attacks. As Sagiri takes cover, she realizes her body is reaching its limit, but Yuzuri tells her not to give up, saying she can kill the Tenshin. Yuzuri wraps snake poison around Mudon's leg, but he bombs her with Tao attacks, which she endures, before slamming him into the ground. Mudon gets back up, but Senna stabs him from behind, restricting his movements, as Sagiri goes in for the kill. She slices through his navel, making him fall to the ground. Mudon is defeated, but Sagiri despairs, knowing the elixir doesn't exist. In a flashback, we learn that Senta never wanted to be an executioner, but his family forced him into it. He studied religion to rationalize killing people, which he was praised for, allowing him to rank up. But since meeting Yuzuri, he became jealous of how free she is, and he started to admire her. Back in the present, Gabimaru stands above the remains of the Doshi, thinking he still needs to master the use of Tao. He asks Mei why she followed him, but blood suddenly oozes from his nose as he collapses. Yuzuri notices a number of strange flowers in their area. As she points them out, they suddenly attack her, but Senna shields her, and he starts dreaming about drawing paintings of Yuzuri as he enters eternal bliss. The attack instantly transforms him into flowers, and a huge flower monster appears before them, and Mudon is revealed to be still alive, and he undergoes his transformation. Mudon attacks them with his flowers, but Shion arrives and saves them just in time. He tells Narugai to help them get away, while he prepares to fight against Mudon, recognizing him as a Tenshin. He seems to have figured out Tao by sensing the waves of a creature, and he thinks he can kill Mudon by directly cutting his wave. Narugai cuts the roots of the flowers, transforming Senta, and it seems to be able to slow his transformation. Sagiri wonders what they can do for him, and Yuzuri decides to try and heal him. Meanwhile, Shion fights against Mudon, and he even manages to knock him back. Yuzuri is surprised he is so strong, and Sagiri can see that Mudan isn't able to heal from Shion's attacks. But Shion took some damage in the exchange, and flowers start to grow on his body. He instantly cuts all of the flowers off, but Sagiri thinks he is losing too much blood. Sagiri wants to help him, so Nurugai suggests they all attack together, but Yuzuri claims she is all out of energy. Nurugai suddenly hugs her, and she hugs Sagiri as well, and they wonder what she is doing. Nurugai says she used to do it to her grandfather to energize him, and she tried it on Shion as well, which seemed to help him recover. Sagiri thinks it has something to do with Tao, but they quickly go to help Shion. Sagiri tells him about the weak point in the navel, but Shion notes that Mudan has 2 navels, and just being scratched by his attack would be fatal. Sagiri reveals they covered themselves in Yuzuri's mucus, which should be able to prevent scratches and stop flowers from growing, so they plan to act as decoys for him. Mudan appears behind Nurugai, and Sagiri protects her, cutting down Mudan's vines. Shion is impressed at her ability to sense waves, and she is able to use it to predict the attacks. Shion prepares to attack, but Mudan starts blasting him with energy attacks. Sagiri and Nurugai cut down some of his vines, and Shion takes the chance to cut one of Mudan's legs. Mudan's regeneration becomes slower, and Sagiri thinks they could actually win, but she is reaching her limits. Mudan gets back up, unleashing his energy at all of them, but Shion continues to charge forward, remembering how he was forced to let Tenza die. He refuses to run away again, and Sagiri and Nurugai manage to pin Mudan's hands. Shion gathers all his power into his blade, but as he is about to strike, he wonders if the navel is really its weakness, because he doesn't sense waves coming from that area. Time is running out, but Senta suddenly tells him the weakness is the center of the flower, because that's where all the nutrients in a flower are located, and Shion slashes it, allowing him to defeat Mudan just in time. Sagiri rushes to check up on Senta, but Yuzuri says he doesn't have much more time. She reveals she only has one more salve, but she thinks it would be better used on Shion. Sagiri doesn't want to accept this, but Yuzuri says she is just a realist, telling Senta he isn't going to make it. She tells him to be true to himself in his final moments, and Senta imagines being in the arms of the one he admired. After this, they wonder what they should do next, and Sagiri refuses to lose any more people, no longer seeing them as criminals and executioners, but she decides to do everything she can so that they can all make it back alive. Meanwhile, Gabimaru wakes up and he is instantly on edge. Tamiya tells him to relax, and Gabimaru wonders where they are. Fuchi reveals they found a cave halfway up the valley, and it seems Gabimaru has lost his memory. Sagiri's group continues forward, and they are surprised to see a number of statues and temples. They decide to get some rest in one of the buildings, and Yuzuri finds them a change of clothes. Shion reviews the information that they have so far. He notes that Tao is a power that everyone possesses, and mastering it will allow a person to achieve superhuman abilities, but he says they have to be careful using it, because Tao is life itself, and if they use too much, it could cause physical or mental changes, or even affect memories and consciousness, and in the worst case, overuse will likely lead to death. Yuzuri wonders what they should do since the elixir of life doesn't exist, because the shogun won't accept that, but Sagiri tells them how Gabimaru told her it exists, since his village chief was actually immortal. However, Yuzuri thinks that might have just been an illusion, because shinobi often use them to brainwash and control children when they are young, saying they did the same thing in her village. Yuzuri also finds the story about Gabimaru's wife strange, because shinobi are just pawns. She thinks his wife might not even exist, and she could have been another one of the chief's illusions used to motivate him. We see Gabimaru has completely lost his memory, only remembering that he is Gabimaru the Hollow, and he plays along with the other 3 to get information about where he is. Mei asks if he is okay, and he says he is fine, but she can sense a disturbance in his Tao. Sagiri keeps watch at night, and Shion joins her. She thinks about all the people they have lost, and she worries about Gabimaru. Shion wonders if she likes him, but Sagiri finds it all too sad that he is trying so hard to get back to his wife, but she might not even exist. Even though he's a killer, she doesn't think he is a bad person, so she hopes that he can be reunited with her. But that's where this video ends.